Okay guys, so here is the class opener explained. Let's start with number one. Remember, you can split the root of anything that's being multiplied inside the square root. So we do have multiplication between these terms, so we're going to split the root and then work on each of them individually. So the square root of 75, the square root of x to the 8th, and the square root of y to the 7th. Okay, well, 75, it's not a perfect square number, but we could rewrite it as 25, which is a perfect square number, times 3. Right? There's 3 quarters and 75 cents. So we're going to split the root, and the square root of 25 is 5, and we have the square root of 3 that comes down. Now remember, we are multiplying between the 5 and the square root of 3. That is part of our answer. Let's move on to the next one, the square root of x to the 8th. Remember, the square root is really the power of 1/2. So let's actually do that, showing our work. Now I know a lot of us already know that it simply means to divide your exponent by 2. Show my work here. So the square root could be rewritten as a power of 1/2. We still have x to the 8th in there, and we know that when we have a power to a power, we multiply those powers. 8 times half is simply 4. So what we really have is x to the 4th, no more square root, it's just x to the 4th. Now on this last one, I'm going to rewrite this guy. Sorry about the technical difficulties here. So I know that I would like to have an even power inside the square root. So it would be nice if I had like y to the 6th. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to rewrite it as y to the 6th times y, because that's the same thing as y to the 7th. Y to the 6th times y is really the same thing as y to the 7th. And now I'm going to be able to split my root, y to the 6th, square root of y. And of course, the square root of y to the 6th, I'm not going to show my work this time. I already know that the square root's really the power of 1/2, and when I multiply 6 times 1/2, I'll get y to the 3rd. Now the square root of y is just going to stay there, square root of y. So let me rewrite it over here, times y to the 3rd times square root of y. So I have all of this in blue. That is my answer. Let me just rearrange it. Let me put the radicals together under the same square root. So I'm going to have the square root of 3 and y both together under the square root. I have a 5 on the outside, an x to the 4th, and a y to the 3rd. That's my final answer for number 1. Please make sure you understand it. You will see questions like this on the test Friday. Let's move on to number 2. Again, square root. We're going to split up everything. There's multiplication between everything. So when I split it up, I'll have the square root of negative 108. I'll have the square root of x, which is going to stay the square root of x, and the square root of y to the 6th. And that's an even power, so it works out pretty good. 108 is not a perfect square number, so we could break it down with multiplication to get a perfect square number. Now let's say you just don't have an idea what perfect square number to use. If you try dividing this by 2, you'll get, you could use a factor tree. But I know that number 3, we should know that when you have a fraction on the inside of a square root, you could split the square root. So square root of x over square root of 20. Okay, that's what we have so far. Now what we need to do is simplify whatever possible, and we are going to simplify the square root of 20. 20 is not a perfect square number, but I could rewrite it as 4 times 5. That way, 4 is a perfect square number. And when I split the root, I will end up with 2 square root of 5 in the denominator. Okay. So let me rewrite what we have so far. We have this numerator, the square root of x, over, and on the bottom we have 2 square root of 5. Now, if you leave the answer like this, unfortunately, I can't give you full credit. We cannot leave radicals in the denominator, so we want to rationalize this fraction. Let's get rid of that square root of 5 by multiplying by the square root of 5. And what you do to the bottom, you must do to the top. Okay. So up on top, our answer will be, since we do have a radical times another radical, we could simply put the values on the inside together underneath one radical. So my answer is the square root of 5x, putting them together and in order. And on the bottom, we do have the 2. This 2 is right there. And the square root of 5 times square root of 5 is simply 5, no more square root. Remember, whenever you multiply a square root with itself, it eliminates the root. It's just the value inside. So our final answer will be, this is our answer, but we just need to change that 2 times 5 to a 10. Square root of 5x over 10. Ladies and gentlemen, these questions, these almost identical questions, will be on the test Friday. Number 4. Again, I apologize if the video is coming out kind of choppy. I'm having some problems with the recording. Anyhow, hopefully this is working for you guys. We could split the root to the top and to the bottom, but before doing that, let's look at this fraction and let's see if we could do anything to simplify it, to reduce it. And as you can see, there is a values both on top and bottom, so I'm going to cancel those a values out. We also have b values. We have one b value on top, which cancels out with one of these b values on the bottom, so that means we're going to have 3 b values left. So now that I've simplified all that I can, like right here, 9 over 25, if it were 9 over 18, I could reduce it to 1/2, but it's 9 over 25, so there's nothing else to do. Now I'm going to rewrite it, and I'm going to split the root. So on top, I have just a 9, and on the bottom, I have the square root of 25b to the third. So this really does become like 2 problems. You have this problem that you need to do, which is easy. What's the answer to the square root of 9? The answer is 3. That's your answer up on top. And on the bottom, you have the square root of 25b to the third. So again, that's like simplifying, which we're going to split the root. So we're going to split the root, 25, split the root, b to the third. And of course, the square root of 25, that's just 5, and that's part of our answer. And the square root of b to the third, see, you don't want an odd power right there. You would like an even power, because we know that the square root is really the power of 1/2. So it's really like dividing the exponent by 2. So it'd be nice if this were a 4, but it's not. It's a 3. But what we're going to do is rewrite it with multiplication to get an even power. So I'm going to just rewrite it in blue right here. I'm going to rewrite it as b squared times b. After all, b squared times b really is b to the third. And now I'm going to split the root. I'm going to split the root, and the square root of b squared, that's simply b, and the square root of b is going to stay the square root of b. So what we have here in the denominator is the number 5 times b times the square root of b. And that's my denominator. Let me rewrite it up there where my answer belongs. So I have a 5b square root of b, and that's on the denominator, with the number 3 up on top. Now the problem is we cannot leave a radical in the denominator. You don't want this square root of b down there. So we need to get rid of it by multiplying both top and bottom by that same radical value. So my answer will be 3 square root of b over what is square root of b times square root of b? That's just b. So I do have the original 5b that was down there, but I also have this square root of b times square root of b, which is another b. So I need to actually multiply the b times b. So here is my absolute final answer, 3 square root of b over 5b squared. That is my answer to this question. And you're going to see these types of questions on the test Friday once again. Moving on to the last one on the board here, number 5. The square root of 27 over b squared. Once again, we're going to split the root. So you're going to have the square root of 27 over the square root of b squared. Now, the square root of b squared, that's easy. The answer on the bottom is just b. Okay. On top, you need to actually work this out, the square root of 27. So let me do this down here. The square root of 27 is not a perfect square number. I'm going to break it down with multiplication to get a perfect square number, such as 9 times 3. And I will split the root, and I will have 3 square root of 3 as the final answer up on top. 3 square root of 3. Now notice there is no radical on the bottom. There's nothing to cancel out, so that's it. You're done. That's your answer. 3 square root of 3 over b. This class opener has questions almost identical, if not identical, to the questions on the 100-point test this Friday. Please make sure that you understand these questions and practice these questions.